The story starts with a teenage girl, Suzume Iwato, having a dream of a memory of herself as a little girl, wandering through a field with a beautiful dark sky, filled with stars while crying and searching for her mom. She hears footsteps behind her and turns around to find out who was approaching her and sees a shadowy silhouette of a woman walking towards her. But then she jolts out of the dream. Like any regular day, Suzume gets out of bed, gets set for school, and has breakfast while conversing with her aunt, Tamaki Iwato, who informs Suzume that she'll be back home late due to work, and they both head out to their various destinations. While riding her bike to school, her attention is drawn to a young man, Sota Tomunakata, who asks her for directions to any ruin in the area. Suzume directs the young man to a nearby ruin, but she is inquisitive and heads in the same direction. On getting there, she encounters an isolated door which she opens and sees a beautiful world lying beyond it, but she is unable to enter this world. Near the door, she finds an odd-looking stone, but when she picks it up, it transforms into a feline creature that runs away. Scared by what happened, Suzume heads back to school, leaving the door open. While having lunch at school with her friends, she looks out the window and spots a smoke-like body emerging from the bottom of a mountain, but her friends are unable to see it. She heads towards the source of the smoke-like body and discovers that it was coming out of the door she left open earlier. Sota, the man she had met earlier, tries to force the door shut but fails to do so, and the smoke-like body hovers over a large region of the town. Sota attempts to close the door again, aided by Suzume, and this time around succeeds in doing so. Sota proceeds to explain to Suzume about the door, telling her it's a gate where the smoke-like bodies called worms come from. He tells Suzume to go home and forget all she had seen, but she sees that Sota is injured and instead forces him to follow her home so she can tend to his wounds. As Suzume tends to his injuries in her room, she asks Sota to give a clear explanation of the door and the worms. He tells her that the worm is a giant force that dwells beneath the Japanese islands, and that it rages and shakes the land if disturbed. Sota adds that he only locked the worm away temporarily, and that without sealing it with a keystone, it would appear again, causing earthquakes. While talking in her room, an ill-looking cat climbs on Suzume's window, and Suzume decides to feed the cat. Suzume is in shock when the cat says that it likes her, and that Sota is in the way. Sota realizes that the cat is the keystone that has been released, and he suddenly becomes trapped inside a three-legged chair that Suzume's mom had made for her as a child. He chases after the cat as it runs away, and Suzume follows behind. They chase the cat into a ship headed to Ehime, but the cat eventually escapes and tells Suzume that they'll meet again before it jumps overboard. While on the ship, Sota realizes that Suzume was the person who touched the odd-looking stone, known as the Keystone, and released a relic that placed a curse on him, trapping him in the three-legged chair. He goes on to reveal to Suzume that he is a closer, whose job is to close open gates that cause disasters across Japan. Afterward, they agree to turn the cat back into the Keystone and banish the worm so everything would go back to normal. When they arrive at Ehime, Sota heads out to find the cat and tells Suzume to go home, but she insists on tagging along because people seeing a chair walking on its own would be strange, and Sota would need her help moving around. On their way, they encounter a high school girl, Chika, whose family owns an inn in that area, and they let her know about their search for the cat, hoping she may have information of its whereabouts. But they suddenly notice a worm emerging from a nearby hilltop and rush towards it. They arrive at the location of the worm, and Sota tries to close the gate, but is unable to do so because he lacks hands to hold, and turns the key which closes the gate. Sota then instructs Suzume on how to close the gate, and she closes it. They are relieved about closing the gate, and Sota commends Suzume on doing so. But their celebration is abruptly cut short, as the cat they were in search of instantly appears, and says that another gate will appear soon, then scurries away before they could go after it. Suzume and Sota proceed to spend the night at an inn run by Chika's family. When Suzume wakes up the next day, she notices that Sota took a long time before he gained consciousness, which happened previously on the ship, but she rules it out as him just being a heavy sleeper. Sota wakes up and Suzume shows him a video clip of the cat crossing a bridge leading to Kobe. They head out in that direction, but they encounter some challenges as they are unable to find a means of transportation and are stuck in a sudden rain. Eventually, Rumi, who lives in Kobe, runs a bar there with her kids in the car, assists them by driving them towards their destination. Suzume ends up babysitting Rumi's kids and waitering at the bar she runs. While Suzume was working, she spots the cat now called Daijin and alerts Sota. They both chase after it, and in the course of the chase, Daijin points their attention towards an emerging worm close by, and they both rush in that direction. They arrive at an abandoned amusement park which Rumi had previously mentioned to them on their drive to Kobe that had become a gate. Daijin is also present at the gate, and Sota decides to go after it to turn it back into the keystone, while Suzume tries closing the gate. Sota gets a hold of Daijin, but soon notices that Suzume is staring into the gate and lost in its scenery. He lets Daijin escape so he could save Suzume, and they both close the gate. Sota goes on to explain to Suzume that what she saw on the other side of the gate is the afterlife, where all souls go to rest and no living person can get in there. They return to Rumi's place, have dinner, and discuss a bit about their lives before going to bed. While dozing off, Sota soon realizes that his mind is drifting farther away from this world towards the afterlife, but he is called back by Suzume. The next day, they both set out towards Tokyo, still on their quest to find Daijin, but Sota chooses to take a detour to his place. While at Sota's place, they try to get more information about the gates, keystones, and their locations from an old book that mentions the existence of 2 keystones. It shows the location of the first, but that of the second keystone was omitted by Sota's grandfather, who was in a nearby hospital. Still at Sota's place, they meet Sota's friend, Tomoya Serizawa, who tells Suzume that Sota had missed an important exam, but they soon take notice of an enormous worm emerging nearby. Suzume and Sota then head toward the location of the worm, and find out that the gate was a huge tunnel which is impossible to close. The whole body of the worm soon emerges from the gate and creates a dark cloud over Tokyo. Sota and Suzume spot Daijin on the body of the worm and go after it, intending to use Daijin to seal away the worm, but Sota becomes stiff. Daijin reveals to them that Sota is the current keystone, and Sota instantly becomes frozen in ice. Daijin tells Suzume to use Sota, who has now become the keystone, to seal the worm away before it drops to the earth, which would cause a massive earthquake and kill a lot of people. But Suzume, in tears, is hesitant and futilely tries to call back Sota. She eventually does what Daijin told her to do, and uses the keystone, which is Sota, to seal away the worm. She loses consciousness after doing so, and has a recollection of herself as a child with her mom. After she regains consciousness, she finds herself at the bottom of a cave and sees a huge gate with Sota on the other side. She desperately attempts to go through to meet him, but she is unable to. She meets Daijin at the gate, and in anger, accuses Daijin of causing what happened to Sota, then tries to make Daijin resolve everything. But Daijin is more concerned with knowing if Suzume loves it. Suzume chases Daijin away and closes the gate, vowing to return to save Sota one day. She goes to see Sota's grandfather, Hitsujiro Munakata, at the hospital he's in, and informs him of Sota's fate. Also, she tries to find out how to get into the afterlife so she could save Sota, but Hitsujiro tells her to give up as Sota no longer belongs to this realm and is now a keystone. Suzume refuses to give up and makes up her mind to reopen the underground gate so she could enter and save Sota, but is strongly warned against doing so by Hitsujiro. He eventually realizes how determined Suzume is about bringing back Sota and reveals a way of getting into the afterlife to her. He tells her to find the gate to the afterlife that she went through previously as a child while searching for her mom, and after Suzume exits the room, Hitsujiro entrusts her into the hands of another feline creature, Sedaijin. Suzume sets off to find the gate and bumps into Serizawa, who offers to join her in the search for Sota, but they are suddenly intercepted by Tamaki, Suzume's aunt, who tries to return home with Suzume. Suzume refuses to return home with her, and they get into an argument which is cut short by Daijin. All 4 of them eventually head towards Suzume's hometown where the gate is located. It starts raining, and they stop halfway to wait out the rain. While waiting, Tamaki tries to find out Suzume's reason for heading back to her hometown, and also convinces her to come back home, but Suzume refuses, which leads to another huge fight between them. Suddenly, Sadaijin appears behind Tamaki, and Daijin attacks it, but Sadaijin drags Daijin back into Serizawa's car. Tamaki collapses, and after she wakes up, she runs to meet Serizawa crying because she feels bad about what she said during her fight with Suzume. After the rain stops, they continue on their journey, with Sadaijin joining them. Serizawa tries to reconcile Tamaki and Suzume, but Tamaki and Serizawa are both in shock, finding out Sadaijin can speak, and as a result, they get into a minor accident. Suzume decides to run the rest of the way with Sadaijin and Daijin, but Tamaki quickly grabs a nearby bike and transports them there. On their way, Tamaki and Suzume settle their differences. They arrive at Suzume's old home where she had last seen the gate that took her into the afterlife. Suzume finds her old diary buried in a box beneath the foundation of the house, and while looking through the diary, she reminisces the day she lost her mom, and she vividly recalls where she saw the gate, but not its exact location. Daijin then leads Suzume to a specific spot where the gate is, and Suzume realizes that Daijin had been helping them all along by leading them to the location of the gates. Suzume, Daijin, and Sadaijin then go through the gate and enter the afterlife and are met with a horrifying scene of flames and destroyed buildings all over. Amid the flames, they see the worm and Sadaijin wrestles it. Suzume spots Sota at the top of a hill of ice nearby, and she runs in his direction with Daijin following behind. Suzume then tries to pull Sota out of the ice, and Daijin warns that doing so would release the worm into the world of the living, but Suzume offers to take Sota's place as the keystone. Moved by what she said, Daijin decides to assist her in pulling Sota out, but they are both slowly covered by a layer of ice. As Suzume desperately calls out to Sota, she suddenly sees a memory of her first encounter with Sota and moments of their journey together. She realizes that they are Sota's memories, and she begins to hear his thoughts and desires of not wanting to die, but live. She continues calling out to Sota, and is eventually able to reach him and pull his body out of the chair where he was trapped as the keystone. Daijin suddenly reverts into a relic, which is the first keystone. Meanwhile, the worm heads for the outside world, and Sadaijin holds it back. Sota proceeds to recite phrases that are used to seal the worm away, and Sadaijin reverts to being the second keystone. Sota and Suzume then place the relics into the worm, sealing it, and it becomes an earthen mound. Then, they find themselves in a field of grass with a beautiful dark sky filled with stars, and they see a little girl crying and wandering around the field. Suzume realizes that the little girl was herself and goes after her. She comforts the little girl and hands her the wooden chair her mom made for them to ease her sadness and cheer her up. They all head back to their present worlds through the gates they had come through, and Suzume proceeds to lock the gate. Afterward, Sota bids Suzume farewell, promising to meet her again, and they both go their separate ways. Months later, as Suzume rides her bike to school, she stumbles on Sota like when they first met. Thanks for tuning in to our anime recap. We hope you enjoyed our take on the movie. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more recaps. See you in the next one.